Welcome, Sunny. Thank you so much for coming to discuss Summer on the Bluffs, your novel.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I have loved this book. It's so fun. It's so engaging. I don't know what I was expecting, but I just loved it. It was so great.
Yay.
Anyway, as you know, I've already recommended it lots of places. And it's a very smart, like modern day relationship book. It's not, I mean, I know beach read is something they say that's like disparaging almost, but this is like it's great. Anyway.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, I wanted to write something that I wanted to read,
Mhm.
and I do like escapism, and I like beach reads, but I don't like them, if I'm being honest, to be too frivolous,
Yep.
right? And just to be too light,
Yep.
if that makes sense. So I wrote what I like to read, something that isn't dark and dreary, but has some heft to it.
Yep.
That was what I planned to do. So I'm glad you got it.
Totally. I mean, infertility, grief, sexuality, like you got all the things, like gender, race, like what else have we not touched on in this book? I mean, it's amazing. So yeah, I mean, it sort of speaks to like, not that I don't love your cover. I love your cover. It's great. But it's like it's so hard to convey everything just from the outside of a package. You know what I mean? It's like how do you know sometimes? So anyway.
Well, the funny thing about the packaging is the cover art, the picture is actually comes from this house. It's a real house that I walk past every day. I do sort of this like 7 mile walk along the water in Oak Bluffs on East Chop Drive, and there's this house that I look at all the time, and I'm like, if someone would just like decide to just give that house to me because I walk by it and maybe they see me staring at it lovingly, maybe they decide I'm going to give that person that house. And I literally just stare at it all the time. And I took a photograph of it and I sent it to my editor, Carrie, and I said, "This is Alma's house, just so you know." And she was like, well, that's the cover then. And so that's where it comes from. But then when I got like the cover art with the house and the pink and the blue, I was like, wow, I don't know if that's what I was thinking of,
Yeah.
in all honesty. But the thought was, well, it is a beach read. You don't really want to turn people off. Um, but it doesn't really reflect, I think, the depth, right,
Yes.
of what's inside, but at least it doesn't turn people away from
Exactly.
it, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
Do the people who own this house know that not only do you stalk them, but you put it on the cover of your book?
Well, they don't know that I thirst for their house. They don't know
Okay.
that.
It's just a subtle hint. I did something similar. I was in Rhode Island and I saw this house and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is like my dream house." And next thing you know, I was like, "Can someone find out if I can like talk to the owner and like try to buy it even though it's not on the market and like why I would need a house in Rhode Island is like beyond me." Do you know what I mean? And my husband's like, "What are you doing?" You're like, and I was like, he's like, "What if they say yes?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just have to ask."
I've looked at it for years. I'm like, I know it's not for sale because they seem to be enjoying it. But
Exactly. I'm like, who are these people in the backyard of my house? Oh my gosh. Well, I thought one of the really beautiful, interesting parts of this book was um, uh, how you dealt with loss and grief with this 33-year-long marriage. Between Omar and Amelia, and how it took her like 3 years to sort of go through the mourning,
yeah.
which I found so interesting. Tell me a little bit about that, and you even had a something I loved. Wait, let me try to find this quote that I thought was so beautiful. When you talked about his passing away, you said she had mourned him with the patience that had been the hallmark of their marriage. In the first months, she'd carefully edited and digitized all their photo albums. She wanted her girls and the children they would have someday to know what Black love looked like in the 20th century when the world was changing so fast and so slow at the same damn time.
Yes, yes. Well, I've been married for over 20 years. And my husband is a very sort of old-fashioned guy. Omar, in many respects, is sort of based off of my husband Manny, and he's sort of quiet and a man of few words, like Omar, right? And you know, I often think, and it's a little bit macabre, but what would life look like without him? I don't know how what that looks like. I don't want to know what it looks like, but I don't know what it looks like. And when we first started dating, he would write me letters. He was born in Spain. His mom's Spanish, and he'd write me letters when he would visit Spain. And now it's a lot of text messages and that sort of thing. But I've saved the letters, and I've often thought, that's something that I eventually I think will show my children. And so the story, it's fictional, of course, but a lot of it is based, I think, on our patient relationship. And the other thing that I based part of their love story on is one of my best friends. She lost her husband at a very young age when she was pregnant with my godson. And one of the things that she explained to me was, and it was a long illness, it was CTE related. One of the things, and so she sort of watched him die. And one of the things that she said to me was that she kept his shirt, and it smelled of him. And I thought, wow, it's so poetic. And I asked her permission to sort of borrow that, because I think that is such a interesting sign of not only loss but longing and affection, right? And love. And I write about that in the book, about his sort of turtleneck. And that's where kind of that, that description of what I believe marriage is, and what loss would look like.
I love that he wears turtlenecks and jeans only in Paris. Like, what is that? Okay, cool.
It's really a character that he puts on.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, why not? No, that image of his closet, and that she could keep the door closed and keep the smell sort of trapped, as
Yes,
if trying to freeze time.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, it was just very poignant.
yeah.
Really beautiful. And also, and by then, speaking of the letters, you had a whole section in here, of course, about like, you were like, how can people even fall in love these days with emails and texts and
I
dating
don't
apps?
get it. I don't get it. I have some of my friends that are dating, and one guy like broke up with her by text, and I was like, "Where romance is dead? It's so dead with this like swipe right, swipe left, and I'm in pain for my children. Like, I have an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old. I'm like, what is that experience like? I don't know what that looks like. How do they find that? Everything is so urgent and disposable. And I definitely wanted to address that. Like, things aren't disposable. Love has to be very patient. Relationships have to be very patient. And I try to put myself in the place of a 20-something, and in the place of a 60-year-old. I try to have that span for a women, the life of a woman, because we're so complex, we're so complicated, and our relationships are so complicated, and our friendships especially are so complicated. And our choices are complicated, and we have to own those choices, as the characters in the book do. But dating today is just like,
Yeah,
I'm so happy I'm not dating.
I know.
I'm so happy.
I have 4 kids, and my oldest are twins. They're almost 14. And
Yeah.
I'm like, this is like not gonna work. Like they can't even spell. Like how are they going to be like texting and professing their love to
Exactly.
each other? And like, oh my gosh, no. It's like,
Writing script. It's
yeah,
horrible.
exactly. It's so true. Oh my gosh. I also thought it was so great that you showed love at a young age, but then this like second stage of hot, hot and heavy, like,
Yeah.
I mean, for an older woman, and how old was she supposed to be? Like 60 something, right?
Like,
Omar was 73 when he passed away, something like that.
yeah.
I mean, How often do we not read about relationships that get that are particularly like passionate things that happen in later life? Like how great.
Well, it's funny. I talk to, I work with women on the View of different ages, and that was Barbara Walters' dream. Every, a woman from every decade, and we really have that on our show: 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. The person that like talks about sex the most is like in her 70s on the show. And she needles me all the time because I'm like a Catholic schoolgirl, really. I'm Catholic, and like many Catholics, I don't talk about sex. And in writing about that, I thought, I don't understand why women in their 50s or 40s are like put out to pasture. And like, we no longer have a love life, and we no longer have desire. And I was like, I want to break that mold. And while I want to, write about this coming of age and career and all the crap that women have to go through, like, there is life after 40. There is life after 50. And especially, I've seen it in some of my older friends. Their kids go off to college, man, and they are reborn. I don't recognize these women. They are like hot to trot, and they are happy, and they're going on these like self-discovery missions. And it's really terrific. The women that have read it, especially those that are in their 60s, they're like, thank you. Thank you. There's hope for me. And I think that the love story between Amma and Carter, especially, is probably the sexiest, I think, out of all the relationships,
Yep.
right? Like, who doesn't want Carter in her life?
I also want Carter's photos, please.
Yes.
Like, could I like buy those somewhere? Where are those?
Photos. You want his boat. You want
Yes.
his bohemian lifestyle. You want this freedom, which should come at that age when you know yourself, and you're grown. I definitely, that was something that his character I enjoyed writing like more than anything, actually. Amma and Carter. I just thought that was like pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. That
Yeah.
was super cool. It was like hot. I started co-hosting this other podcast lately called Moms Don't Have Time to Have Sex.
Yeah.
And I do it, and I am like you. I am like, I don't talk about this stuff. I am like so shy and whatever. And I do it with this sex expert who's 59 years old and is like, she's British, so everything's like hilarious. But it's all about, she'll like share all this stuff about like her life and women later, and it's just so funny. So it sort of has opened up my eyes to like the unending nature of this, right? Like,
Yes.
I don't know, when I was younger I was like, oh, I'm sure old people don't have sex.
I know, and it's so not true. It's
So not true.
true. And and love and lust, and you're sort of untethered at that age, which is really cool. And especially if you have two people that are rediscovering themselves, and each other, not themselves really, rediscovering each other, and they're financially secure. I mean, it's like, wow,
Yeah.
that's true freedom. That's
This whole like life is short. I mean,
yeah.
when you're in your 70s, like, why not?
Why not? Why not?
If not now, when? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you totally captured that with their characters.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was so real. It was awesome. And then you have this whole other dimension with infertility struggles, which of course more women, like, you've tapped every woman of every age. Somebody can relate to everything. So, and even when, I don't want to like give things away or whatever, but when one of the characters thought that her boyfriend was cheating and the other girl was pregnant, the issue was more that she was pregnant, right?
Yes.
Then that was like the biggest thing. Like, she didn't want someone else to be pregnant.
Well, yeah, I went through infertility, years of infertility. And what I realized, and I wrote about it in my memoir, and the response, my memoir was extensive, but the most feedback that I got, hundreds of emails, was about that particular chapter. I called it Motherhood. And it just reminded me that people still suffer in silence, about infertility. It's almost like shame-based for some reason when so many women suffer through it. And I just remember that when I talked about it, people were like, okay, okay, enough, enough. I was like, enough, but we should be talking about it. I'm kind of a blabbermouth in that sense. So I thought that's something that I'm definitely going to write about, because I know that women are going through this. And I remember my best friend, I used to, like, I nicknamed her in my mind, not to her, well, she'll know it now, but I nicknamed her like, I nicknamed her like Fertile Myrtle, because like, you just look at her and she got pregnant, and I was like struggling with it. And it was a little unnerving, because every time I turned around, she was pregnant and complaining about being pregnant. And I was like, what I would give to be pregnant. And so that was sort of where that came from, because I would imagine that's what would upset me the most if my spouse or my partner cheated on me. It would not be, it would be that someone else got pregnant. And then I think, I would project this sort of notion that, oh my goodness, it's me. There's something wrong with me, especially if you're a type A personality, like, this character is.
This character. Okay.
So yeah, that was, it's all fiction, but certainly I plucked a little bit of that from my life, because I know so many women go through that. I just know it. And you do question yourself, right? You question your femininity. You question, it's like, why me? But it's why a lot of people, a lot of people are going through that.
Just because a lot of people go through something hard doesn't mean the people going through it can't say why me.
Exactly,
If
exactly.
it's still something, it's like if
It's okay to
everybody
feel
broke
sorry.
if everybody broke their arm or something, they'd still be like, why'd I break my arm?
Yeah, it's okay to feel sorry for yourself. And that's another thing that I learned. It's like, it's okay to
Hmm.
feel this way. And that's something that this character kind of needs to learn. Like, it's okay. It's okay that, that you feel this way.
Well, now I have to go back and read your memoir. I'm so
Um,
sad I didn't read it before this. Now I'll read it this summer. That's great. And by the way, I heard you have like a whole series of Summer on SAG, and what else? What's the third one gonna be?
Summer on Highland Beach, which is in Maryland. And the way I sort of thought of it is, my good friend, Larry Graham, he passed away recently, but he wrote Our Kind of People. And it's a wonderful book, about sort of just the history of African Americans, and really the bourgeoisie in particular. He's written a lot of books, but that history included, discrimination, of course, against African Americans, but the places where the Black bourgeoisie was sort of, able and permitted to buy beachfront property. And I thought, wow, I've been to all of those places. One was Oak Bluffs, where Black folks have been, vacationing since before the Harlem Renaissance, and Sag Harbor in the Hamptons, and then Highland Beach in Maryland. And it was just so interesting to me also to just, and that's how I pitched it. And HarperCollins was like, this is not one book, this is 3 books. And I hadn't written a word yet. So I was like, yeah, it is 3 books. So I'm actually right in the middle of writing Summer on SAG now. But what's fantastic is, what I also wanted to explore was, I'm biracial, so I wanted to explore interracial relationships. I wanted to explore relationships between Black women and white women, because in all of those places, these were communities that were extremely welcoming to Black people. And I thought that's a wonderful, especially given today's day, wonderful time, and
Mhm.
place to sort of explore this welcoming community, especially between Libby and Amma, because I have a lot of friendships like that. So I thought, that sisterhood was very, very special in those places. And you see that again, um, of course, in Summer on SAG, because you'll see, Olivia and Anderson,
Oh, good.
the uniqueness of their relationship, in Sag Harbor. So
And
that's,
then are more characters from this set going to be in the Highland Park too?
well, right now, I'm not sure, I have no idea.
All right. Okay.
um, but I know that so far, Amma, of course, is sort of a guiding light. So
Mhm.
she's, and Olivia looks up to her. So Amma has made an appearance. Carter, is pretty integral right now to Summer on SAG. And, Olivia has found, um, sort of a father figure in Bill Pickens Whittingham, and I have a really pretty relationship. And then I have some really cool women that she meets, some new summer sisters, including a really cool sommelier and a real estate agent and a couple of cool women. So I'm having fun with
That is awesome.
that.
Well, if you ever want a book party in the Hamptons, let me know.
Yes, definitely.
Sounds like that could be fun. So how did you go about, you hadn't written a novel before, at least not that I know of. How do you
No.
just start doing it after one meeting with HarperCollins? Like, because you did a really good job. Like, I read a trillion books and, it doesn't feel like a debut novel.
Very kind. Thank you. I was very lucky. I reached out to Veronica Chambers, who's someone who doesn't really write novels, actually, but she's just a wonderful guide. And I reached out to her. She had never been to the vineyard. So I was like, oh no. But I invited her to join me and sort of gave her the storyline. I'm like, I have this idea. This is the house. These are the women. This is what I'm thinking of. How do I tell this kind of story? This sort of multi-layered story. And we just sort of went back and forth. And I did it much in the way that I did the memoir in terms of dictating it. Then she would shape it. She would send it to me. And then I'm kind of a crazy editor. My editor, Carrie, is like, you're taking my job from me. As I edit. It was very difficult for me to give her pages. And so we go back and forth like that. And she just sort of taught me how to show and not tell, which was really difficult for me. One example that she used was, instead of saying he was walking on a cold night, I would instead have to write, as he walked along the grass and the leaves crunched under his shoes and he had to zip up his jacket and, as he was shivering, that kind of thing. I had to learn how to do that. And then ultimately, because I still was nervous, we held these writers' rooms because Veronica had written on Girlfriends, a television show. And I invited people like Lindsay Davis, who's anchor of World News Tonight on the weekends, and some of my girlfriends. And I was like, does this sound real? Does this sound authentic? What do you think? And I invited men too. Does this sound accurate? And some of my male friends were like, it sounds too accurate. That sounds like me. That sounds like the night that I did this. And some of the women were like, this is me. I know that story. Please take it out. And that's sort of how it came to be. And then sort of by the end of the process, I was just able to write. And it was kind of cool. So that's,
Wow.
yeah, I think a lot of people, I was a journalism major and I had written things before, short stories, but this was definitely different. Without Veronica, I would not have been able to make it. So
It's interesting what you say about showing, not telling, because essentially what you're doing is like changing it to what could be a stage direction or something, right? You could
yes,
say in a movie,
yes.
like, have the guy zip up his coat, like, have
Yes,
the sound editors bump up that, the leaves crunching,
yes, it's very hard.
Mhm.
It's definitely a skill, but I don't know. I started dreaming the characters. They felt very real to me. I called my editor Carrie and I said, "Am I crazy? I can see these people. I feel like they're talking to me. I'm getting up in the middle of the night and I'm writing what they are saying to each other." She's like, "No, it just makes you a novelist. It's fine. I do this all the time." So that's when I knew I had it. Towards the end of the book, I could hear Billy. I could hear Dulce. I love to cook. I'm part owner in a restaurant, so that stuff came easy. The dishes and all that. The artwork, I collect art. That came easy. But it was just sort of the putting it together that Veronica was really, really, She was really helpful. So,
Yeah, I did love all the art references, especially with all the girls' rooms in the house and
thank you.
Frida Kahlo and all of the. I'm like, well, this is
Right.
quite a range of art in this house.
I love art.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Well, do you have any advice for aspiring authors?
Yeah, I think that you should write about what you love. I think that's really important and what intrigues you. I'm also writing this other thing that my agent is like, send it to me. I'm kind of intrigued by witchcraft and magic and creating those kinds of worlds. I love fantasy. Um, and so I just started writing something. And he's like, I love it. And I think you write about what you love, what you want to read. I think that's what you write about. Even Toni Morrison said there, right? If there's a book, said that if there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. I think that's the best advice possible. And that would be my advice to any author. If you want to read it, then you write it.
I watched a bunch of your interviews about the book before we did this, and I was like, okay, I really want to talk to her about stuff that I didn't already just learn in all these other interviews. I was like, because you say that quote in a lot of them, and I was like, I hope I can get her to talk about stuff that's not just that quote. And I was like, oh look, now here's the quote. Oh no.
It's you write about.
No, it's amazing. It's the best quote ever. I mean,
that's what you write about. You write about what you want to read, what you dream about. I think that's, I like fantasy. I'm gonna write fantasy. I like beach reads centered. I hadn't seen beach reads centered on women of color. I didn't find it, I mean, I read all there was out there. I had read Waiting to Exhale. I read Dorothy, West. I'd read Crazy Rich Asians. I'd read all that.
mm-hmm.
Like, well, I'll write something.
That's awesome.
That's my best advice. And it's the reception that this book has gotten. I'm kind of overwhelmed. It's like sold out on Amazon. I was shocked by that. I would never have believed that in a million years, that there would be a thirst for it, the way I thirsted for it. That's but that goes to show you that if you want to read it, someone else probably does too.
Well, it's as I was saying, with all the different storylines and characters and everything, it's really like there's somebody can almost any woman can find something in there that they are like, oh yeah, that
Yeah,
happened to me, or I
yeah,
feel I relate to that, or so that's like the recipe for success, right?
hey, yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted everyone to, see something in it that spoke to them. And what the best thing that came out of it is that men are reading it. Like, I would have never imagined that in a million years. Matthew Yates does my hair Monday through Thursday. This guy, Jarek Monroe, who does my hair on Friday. He does Whoopi's hair Monday through Thursday. And I had the book here. I would have never said, "Oh, Matthew, read the book." And he's like, can I have a copy? I was like, really? Sure. He came to me. He's like, I'm on chapter 6. This is like after one night. He's like, I love it. I love this about it. I love that about it. I love this about it. My father read it. He read it like in 3 days. My husband listened to the Audible, and they're like asking questions about it, and they're seeing themselves in the male characters, which is unbelievable. Women of all ages are seeing themselves in it. It's especially, I think, resonating with the 20 somethings and the 60 somethings. I'm definitely seeing that from the emails that I'm getting on my website. Like, they're saying, oh my gosh, I'm going through this now in my career. I wish I had an ama. And then I'm seeing, women talking about, like, can I find a Carter in my life? So that stuff has been really encouraging, that people are relating to it.
And I do feel that your male characters are very well developed too, so maybe that's why they're seeing that.
Yeah.
Is there gonna be a movie? There must be, right?
Yes. Yes. Right now, the plan is to make it into a series. So I'm kind of shocked at that. I gave the book to Octavia Spencer, And it was almost like I was giving it to her out of my car trunk. I was kind of embarrassed because it wasn't even like bound or anything. First draft.
Here are my pages, catch. They're
Yeah,
like loose leaves, you know.
big binder clip
Yeah.
on. It was so tacky of me. And I had just moderated a panel, and I knew her kind of. I met her a couple of times, and I literally was like, I just read this book and would love for you to like just read it. And I didn't want much. I wanted like an Instagram post, if I'm being honest. I just wanted her approval. I don't know what I wanted. And she read it and literally called me, got my phone number from my agent, and said, you're going to have a lot of interest. There are going to be a lot of people that want to partner with you. Let me explain to you why I would be a good partner. I mean, Octavia, the incredibly talented Spencer, is like pitching me on why this Oscar winner should do like a project with me. I was like, I thought it was a joke. I was like, she's serious. And I did. I had other people sort of, come to me about it, but who wouldn't want to work with her? She's so lovely. She's so girl power. She made sure that I got appropriately compensated. She kind of tied her deal to mine, which was like something she said Jessica Chastain did for her. She's amazing. And so I'm in partnership with Octavia, her producing partner, Brian, also ABC Studios. And so hopefully it'll be streaming.
That is so cool.
Soon.
That is so cool. Well, I'm sorry I went a little over. I was so enthusiastic about it. Congratulations on the book. Best of luck with everything. And I'm not kidding about Sag Harbor. If you
yes, definitely.
RA of any kind.
We're hoping it will be out by next summer. If I can
perfect.
Get my pages in. I'm like perseverating over it right now. I'm trying to show, not tell. So
all right. 2022 summer. Here we come. All right. Bye-bye, Sunny.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.